Hello everyone. Today we're going to work on a Marlin Model 60 that has jamming issues. I'm going to go over how to disassemble it. Some little tips and tricks when you go to disassemble it to make your life a little easier. So with that, we're going to get started. Then I'll go over the issue with it. First we got to make sure it's unloaded. So we remove the inner magazine tube. Set that down on the side. Check the chamber. She is unloaded. Okay. And then to take this apart, when you flip it over on the bottom, there's 3 screws. You're only going to take out 2. You're going to take out the very first one in the bottom of the stock and the one right behind the trigger housing. And that will separate the whole receiver from the stock. Okay, so get started. That screw and the very front screw. Do not take out the screw in the front of the trigger. That won't do you any good. And there's a little stopper in there that you'll end up loosening. You don't want to loosen. So you can set the stock out of the way since we're not using it. Now we're left with the upper receiver. Now to remove this part, there's 2 screws in the front, one on this side, one on this side, and then there's this through bolt on the back. You only need to remove the one that's rounded. The other side should stay. Basically, you're removing that. And what I like to do on this one, so I have to do it on this piece. See, it's a through bolt. Keep them together so you don't misplace them. And we will remove these front screws. And we can pull out the whole action assembly. Now looking at it, like I said, this one has feeding issues. So, the feed throat on this one is bad. And by looking at it, the hammer is also broken on this one. I don't know if you can see that piece of hammer right there. Luckily, I do have some parts for these. And looking it over, it's like the buffer is cracked as well. So the hammer and the buffer I have already. I have some spare parts for them. The feed throat for these Marlin Model 60s is the hardest thing to find. Said they don't make this gun anymore. The parts aren't supported by Marlin, well, because it's owned by Ruger, and Ruger just bought the name. They don't have the rights to the parts or anything. So anybody and everybody that's out there that has one of these firearms is looking for these feed throats. This is the 3rd variation of it, And when I say variation, the first variation only had 2 pins. You see, these are pins here, one there, and one there. This is the third one. It's got 3 pins. There's 2 on this side and 1 on that side. The newest version has 4 pins. But in order to install the new version in the older models, you have to have a whole conversion kit, which comes with a whole new cartridge lifter, some different springs, and finding that is a pain in the ass. Luckily, I was able to get my hands on a new feed throat, or a newer feed throat for this. I had to make some deals with some shady characters to get a hold of it, but I was able to do it. So we're going to change this out. We're going to change the hammer out. We're going to change this buffer out. So with that said, let me get out my parts that I have for this thing. And my trusty little tool here. So to make this easier, to get this hammer out, and this, because it's got this, the hammer spring there that rides on the hammer strut, it's got some pressure to it. And you don't want to just take it apart because you're going to launch that spring. You'll be pushing the hammer a little bit, you'll be able to see it. But right on this back side, there's a little hole. Take a paper clip to get in that hole. And slowly release the hammer back down. It will hold, and you'll be able to disassemble this without that hammer spring flying off. Now on this particular, let me reverse this on the other side and I'll show you why. These all separate differently. This one's got 3 little C-clamps here that hold this whole assembly together. So, that aside, I like to use a little pick. Works real simple. Oh, before I remove that, the cartridge lifter spring, or the ejector spring, rides underneath the cartridge lifter here. And that's another thing. You want to relieve the pressure off that spring. I found the easiest thing to use is your specialized screwdriver blade that's got a notch cut into it. You can push down on that spring and get it off of there. So now it's just kind of flopping in there. There's nothing, no pressure in there. Now we will remove these little C-clamps. Being very careful not to launch one across the room. Lift this side up right here. Hopefully everybody can see this. Okay. The buffer is pretty simple, it just comes right off. I'll see if I can point the cracks out to you that I saw. You see these lines right here? Those are cracks. And they pretty much travel all the way through. So, got a new used one, because that's all you're going to find are used parts for these things at this point. This one, no cracks. Okay. It's set back in place there. Now, the feed throat is pretty simple. You just got to make sure that you feed the cartridge lifter back through it when you're done. See how simple it just kind of comes off? The cartridge lifter sits in there like this. And then that spring that we unhooked earlier is what puts the pressure on there. Okay? So, I'm going to go put it back together. And we'll look these over. Just want to see if I can fix this old one at all. They just get worn out. Put it back together. Like that. Okay. Now, to do the hammer, which I should do first before I put that back on, I need a little screwdriver here to get the hammer out, because it's got the sear that's applying a pressure to the hammer. So we got to push the sear back a little bit so we can pull the hammer out. Now this is the fun part. Okay, this is where you usually need like a third hand. So you can see that hammer is pretty much broken right there, compared to this one. You can see the difference there. Got a whole section broken off the top of that. Luckily I had these parts sitting. When you find them, you get them and you hold on to them. This is where I always get a third person. Alright. I ended up doing that without my third person, but you gotta maneuver that. Hold that spring down. Hold that back on top. Get your paper clip back in there so you can put it back together. And when you put this back together, you gotta push the sear forward, because remember the sear spring is there, applying pressure to it. So I like to slide it on the shaft a little bit, and then grab a little screwdriver, push the sear, put it down. Pretty simple. And you line this back up into the hole it needs to go into. That, and then we can put our new feed throw back in place, and we will reconnect that spring after we put the side back together. Put this back up, sure everything is lined back up, all your holes go where they need to go. Get rid of the broken parts. Take a sip of coffee. I have to move that again. Line your little C-clamps out. Do one at a time. I use a little screwdriver to help push them in. And that's it. One. Two. And three. take your paper clip out, you just push back on the hammer slightly, pull the paper clip out. That goes back in the little parts bin there, because you're going to use that eventually again. And take your screwdriver with your notch tip. Put your ejector lifter spring back under there. Now you got pressure on your cartridge lifter again, like so. Make sure everything is functioning the way it should. Piece of that over. That's better. Okay. Now we're gonna stick this back in the firearm. So, we got a new hammer, newer feed throat, newer buffer. Okay. Let's get my coffee out of the way. I'll make this part easier to go back in the firearm. Pull the breech block, and you can lock it in place with the charging handle, which is neat. Pull it back, push on the charging handle, and holds it back. And then you simply drop this in place. Push the hammer all the way back. It'll make it easier. Okay. Just like to start with this through bolt here. Slide it through. Screw in. We're just gonna lightly snug it so we can maneuver the front up if we need to. Take front bolt, get started. Flipper. Do the other side. Now they're all in, we're going to snug everything up. Okay. Now we're going to stick it back in the stock. So, stock back here. Make everything together. Upside down like so. Get our back screw started. I like to tighten down until it feels like it's actually getting snug, and then I'll put the front screw in. And then I'll draw them in evenly. bad. We'll put the magazine in a magazine tube in. Alright, now it's ready to go out to the range and get test fired, and that video will be coming shortly. So, I hope that helped a little bit. If there's any questions regarding this or how to disassemble it or any parts or anything, even finding parts, reach out to me, leave comments, questions, it doesn't matter. I'm going to try and fix up this old feed throat, see if there's any luck, but I don't know if there will be. As far as this hammer and this buffer, those are junk. I'm going to have to search for those again. But yeah, that's it. Marlin Model 60, they break down real simple. It's a simple firearm to take apart. Finding the parts is the struggle with these. And it's usually always that feed throat that goes. So yeah, that's it. They're simple, they're fun. If you can find one, you know, have fun with it. If you can find parts for it, even better. Send me a link. I'll take any help I can get when it comes to finding parts for these things. So that's it. Thank you.